As I'm sure you've heard by now, Elon Musk has bought Twitter and has plans to change some of its policies. Of those, the one that's being talked about the most is his plans to loosen the restrictions around freedom of speech and expression. But is this a good thing or a bad thing for Christians? I think that depends. So let's talk about it. The freedom of expression basically means that you have the right to express your ideas, opinions, and the right to express yourself in nonverbal ways in the public square. For example, for Christians, this can mean wearing a cross in public, or praying silently on your school campus, or even posting about the gospel on your social media page. All of those are examples of having the freedom of expression, but there are limits. You might think it's okay for someone to wear their hat backwards in public, but you might not think that it's okay for them to wear a KKK robe with swastikas on it in public. And that's where the debate comes in. People have long debated what sort of things should be allowed to be expressed in public and what things shouldn't be allowed to be expressed. But one thing that seems clear to me about this topic is that the more things that are protected by the freedom of expression, the less protected people are from having their self-expression invalidated and criticized. So of course, this means with Elon broadening the rules around free speech and free expression, depending on how he does it, though you'll have more freedom to express yourself, you'll lose more protection from being criticized for your authentic expression, because when people criticize you, that's their freedom of expression. Now, most people that I talk to about this say that they're fine with that, and they agree with allowing others to ridicule them as a consequence for being able to express themselves how they want. But what I found is that although we say that we're fine with it, I realized that in actuality, most of us aren't as comfortable with it as we think that we are. I see this playing out in a lot of different ways. For example, trans activists might want the freedom to authentically express themselves, but they also want to silence the freedom of expression of anyone who disagrees with them on that issue. This happens constantly in politics, from Black Lives Matter advocates feeling invalidated by Blue Lives Matter advocates, from Trump and Biden supporters feeling invalidated by fake news, from feminist advocates feeling invalidated by trans advocates, and so on. When I see how this plays out practically, to me it seems like most of us want to be able to express ourselves and to be validated for that self-expression, and to be protected from others invalidating us with their self-expression. The truth is, one person's freedom of expression is necessarily antithetical to another person's freedom of expression. But not every expression makes us angry. For example, if someone expresses that they think that I'm a bad farmer, even though I've never farmed, but if they thought that I was a bad farmer, that wouldn't tick me off, since I don't identify closely with being a farmer. It's because of that I couldn't care less if people think I'm a bad farmer, or even if they're lying and say that I was the worst farmer on earth and I let all of my crops die. It's only the things that we identify closely with that will tick us off if people invalidate us for those things with their freedom of expression. So that leads us to this question. For those of us that are Christians, how comfortable are we with people bashing Christians online? What happens if an increase in the freedom of expression allows for more people to lie about Christians in a non-defamatory way? We also have to remember that the freedom of speech and expression doesn't necessarily mean that what's being expressed has to be right or moral. It could be wrong and it could be immoral. The more freedom of speech and expression that becomes available, the more that we have to remember that the sword cuts both ways, and by supporting this, we're also supporting the right to be more offended. So how comfortable are we with this? For me personally, I'm okay with it, because I think that there's times when being offensive is necessary for the sake of getting a message across. As you guys know, I don't ever want to be unnecessarily offensive, but I do believe that there are times when offense is necessary. So that means that others who might disagree with me about Christianity entirely should also have the right to offend me in order to get their message across, even if I completely disagree with their message. So I'm personally okay with being offended, but not everyone else is like me. So do you agree with me or you disagree with me on this? And also, what do you think should be the boundaries for freedom of speech or freedom of expression, if any? Let me know down below in the comments. And if you want the freedom to be able to express yourself, but you also want to silence those who disagree with you, I hope you don't mind me asking, but what do you mean?